It all started on a chilly November evening in New York City. Ethan Caldwell, one of Silicon Valley's most powerful billionaires, had flown in for a charity gala at the Plaza Hotel. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, and every step he took screamed wealth and control. But then, everything stopped. Because as Ethan crossed the marble lobby, he saw someone that made his breath catch in his throat. A janitor in a faded uniform, bent over a mop bucket. Ordinary. Invisible. Forgettable. Until he looked up. The boy's eyes, stormy gray, sharp, piercing, were the same eyes Ethan had kissed goodnight for 20 years. The same eyes that belonged to Daniel, his only son who had vanished during a hiking trip in Colorado 5 years ago. Ethan's world tilted. Could this worker, this nobody, really be Daniel? Or was it just a cruel trick of fate? Viewers, let me ask you, have you ever seen someone on the street who looked exactly like a loved one you lost? Comment yes if you'd stop in your tracks the way Ethan did. But Michael Carter, that was the janitor's name, didn't linger. He avoided Ethan's gaze, turned away, and vanished through the staff corridor. Ethan's heart thundered. He wasn't the kind of man to believe in coincidences. Billionaires don't build empires by ignoring gut instincts. And here's where the first mystery box opens. If Michael was Daniel, how had he survived 5 years without contact? And if he wasn't, why did he look identical to him? What Ethan did next shocked everyone. He ordered his security team, follow that man. Discreetly. Don't lose him. But where they tracked Michael to later that night would raise even darker questions. Subscribe before the next twist catches you off guard. That night, Ethan's black SUV sat parked on the edge of Queens. His private security detail had tailed Michael Carter across the East River, far from the glittering lights of Manhattan. What they found shocked Ethan even more. Michael didn't live in a penthouse. He didn't even have a proper apartment. Instead, he entered a crumbling brick building with flickering hallway lights. His unit was one room, barely larger than Ethan's closet back in California. Inside, he cared for a frail woman, his mother, confined to a hospital bed. The team's surveillance revealed she suffered from advanced dementia. She called him by different names, sometimes Daniel, sometimes Michael, sometimes a name no one recognized. And here's where things twist, there were no records of Michael's father. None. No birth certificate linking him to a family tree. It was as if his life had been stitched together out of scraps. Viewers, let me pause here. What would you have done in Ethan's shoes? Would you march right in and demand answers, or keep watching from the shadows? Drop your choice in the comments. Ethan chose patience, though every second burned inside him. Because think about it, what would it mean if this struggling janitor really was Daniel? Why hadn't he come home? Why live in poverty when his father controlled billions? Most people don't know this, but Ethan had spent over $10 million on private investigators since Daniel's disappearance. They chased leads across Colorado, Mexico, even Europe. All dead ends. And now, by sheer chance, Daniel's reflection was mopping floors in Manhattan. But the biggest shock was still ahead. Because when Ethan finally confronted Michael the next day, what the young man said cut him deeper than any betrayal in his life. The next morning, Ethan Caldwell didn't send his security team. He went himself. Dressed down in a simple coat and baseball cap, he waited outside the Queens building where Michael lived. When the young man stepped out, backpack slung over his shoulder, Ethan blocked his path. Daniel? His voice cracked on the name. Michael froze. His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered, but instead of recognition, there was fury. Don't call me that. Ethan's heart dropped. He had imagined a tearful reunion, an embrace, maybe even an explanation. But Michael's voice was ice. I know who you are, Caldwell, Michael said. The billionaire who buys everything except the truth. Viewers, have you ever expected love and instead been met with hostility? Imagine the sting of your own child looking at you like a stranger. Ethan tried to reason with him. If you know me, then you know who I'm searching for. My son, Daniel. You look just like him. Michael's laugh was hollow. And maybe you should ask why that is. But you won't like the answer. Ethan wanted to press. But Michael stepped closer, eyes blazing. Stay away from me. If you really want the truth, dig into your own family. The secrets aren't mine, they're yours. He shoved past Ethan and disappeared into the subway. For the first time in decades, Ethan felt powerless. He wasn't up against a business rival or a market crash. This was something darker, personal, twisted, and buried inside the walls of his own empire. Viewers, tell me, if someone hinted that your family was hiding a life-shattering secret, would you keep digging or let it die? Because Ethan couldn't walk away. He ordered a DNA test that very night. And when the results came back, the truth destroyed him. Ethan Caldwell wasn't a man who believed in fate. He believed in numbers, strategy, and control. But that night, sitting alone in his Manhattan penthouse, he couldn't shake Michael's words, "The secrets aren't mine, they're yours." So, he did what billionaires do. He used resources few men could ever dream of. Within hours, Ethan had one of the most discreet laboratories in the country on standby. His team had managed to collect a strand of Michael's hair, pulled from his janitor's cap the night before. The sample was rushed under false names, coded, hidden behind layers of anonymity. Not even the scientists running the test knew whose DNA they were comparing. While waiting, Ethan couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. His mind replayed every memory of Daniel, the boy's first steps in a San Francisco park, his high school football games under the Friday night lights, the proud day he got into Stanford. And then, the last memory, Daniel's backpack being recovered from a cliffside in Colorado. Empty. Torn. A grim symbol of a life cut short. But what if it wasn't? Viewers, have you ever clung to hope so desperately it scared you? That was Ethan now. After 3 agonizing days, the lab called. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened the sealed envelope. His eyes scanned the paper once. Then again. His chest tightened. The results were clear. Michael Carter was his biological son. But here's where the slow burn becomes fire. Ethan only had one child. Daniel. No records of twins. No adoption. Nothing in his past explained how this was possible. And here's the real kicker, the DNA report flagged a disturbing detail. Michael's genetic markers suggested he was younger than Daniel, born years later. Think about that. A boy with Daniel's face. His DNA. But a timeline that didn't add up. Viewers, let me ask you, if science told you the impossible, would you believe it, or assume someone forged the truth? Tell me in the comments, DNA never lies, right? Or does it? Ethan stared at the paper in silence. If Michael was his son, then who had taken him from birth? And worse, what did that mean about Daniel's disappearance? Most people don't know this, but sometimes the greatest betrayals come from inside your own home. And the first crack in that betrayal was about to surface, from Michael's dying mother. Subscribe before the next secret is buried forever. Queen smelled of rain that evening. The cracked sidewalks were slick, neon lights from a nearby deli reflecting in shallow puddles. Ethan sat in a borrowed sedan, staring up at the apartment window where Michael lived. He wasn't here for Michael this time. He was here for the woman confined to that bed, the woman Michael called Mom. Her name was Linda Carter. Once a nurse. Now, a shadow of herself. Her hands shook, her voice broke, and her memories came in fragments. But in those fragments, lived the truth. Ethan bribed his way inside with the help of a private doctor. As he entered the dimly lit room, Linda's eyes widened. For a split second, it wasn't Ethan she saw, it was Daniel. "Danny," she whispered. You came back. Ethan's heart split in two. Imagine hearing your missing child's name spoken like a ghost come alive. Viewers, have you ever wished for something so much that hearing it out loud nearly destroyed you? But Linda's confusion gave way to trembling fear. She clutched Ethan's wrist with surprising strength. Her voice cracked. They told me never to speak. But I can't take it anymore. Who told you? Ethan asked. Her lips trembled. Your friends, people you trust. They brought me a baby. They said his life depended on me. They said if I kept him hidden, no one would ever get hurt. Ethan's chest caved in. Michael? You're saying, he was stolen. Tears streaked her face. I was just a nurse. I didn't know the full story. But they paid me, told me to disappear, to raise him as my own. I thought I was saving him. I thought I was protecting him. Have you ever felt betrayed by people closest to you? Imagine realizing the empire you built, the friendships, the partnerships, were rooted in lies. That's what crushed Ethan in this moment. Linda gasped, her breathing shallow. She whispered one last thing before slipping back into silence. It was all to protect the Caldwell name, your name. Viewers, what would you do if you discovered your entire legacy was built on someone else's pain? Comment below, I want to hear your voice. And just when Ethan thought the confession was enough, the next layer of betrayal was waiting to be uncovered. The words echoed in Ethan's head like a curse. It was all to protect the Caldwell name. Back in his Manhattan penthouse, Ethan sat surrounded by files, contracts, and photographs, his life's empire spread out like evidence in a trial. For decades, he thought his power came from brilliance. Now he wondered if it had always come from secrets. He started digging. Old medical records, financial statements, private emails, nothing was off limits. What he found chilled him. 5 years ago, the same year Daniel disappeared, one of his closest business partners had authorized a silent transfer of millions into a private medical trust. The recipient? Linda Carter. Listed as ongoing care. Viewers, let me ask you, what would you do if you found money trails proving your closest ally was paying off someone tied to your missing child? The betrayal cut deeper. Ethan confronted his boardroom allies. Some turned pale, others grew defensive. But one man, his oldest friend, Richard Harlow, refused to meet his eyes. And then Ethan remembered something. Richard had been with him the night the investigators declared Daniel's case cold. Richard had been the one urging him to let it go. Most people don't know this, but betrayal rarely comes from strangers. It comes from the ones who sit at your table. When Ethan pressed harder, Richard snapped, "You don't understand, Ethan. This was bigger than you, bigger than me. Protecting the Caldwell name was protecting everything we built. You'd thank me if you knew what was at stake. Have you ever been told that pain inflicted on you was for your own good? Viewers, tell me in the comments, guilty or not guilty? Was Richard protecting his friend, or protecting himself?" Ethan's fists shook. "Where is Daniel? What did you do with him?" Richard said nothing. Just silence. And sometimes silence screams louder than words. But here's the twist. Before Ethan could dig deeper, before he could force the truth out of Richard, Michael vanished. No warning. No trace. Just a single note slipped under Ethan's door, 3 words written in shaky ink. He knows everything. Subscribe before the next chapter, because the vanishing is only the beginning. Ethan barely slept that night. Michael was gone. No calls, no sightings, no traces. Just that single note. He knows everything. But who was he? Richard? Another hidden hand? Or someone even closer? The next morning, Ethan stormed into his office tower overlooking Central Park. For years, this place symbolized success. Now, every corner felt poisoned. He demanded answers, called his lawyers, his investigators, his board. Yet no one spoke. No one dared. Viewers, have you ever looked around a room of people you trusted and wondered, which one of you is lying to my face? That was Ethan now. Then came the phone call. A voice distorted, mechanical, dripping with menace. You were never supposed to find him, it said. Daniel was the mistake. Michael was the correction. Walk away, or lose everything. And then, click. Silence. Shock isn't strong enough a word. Imagine being told your own children, your very blood, were treated like chess pieces in someone else's game. Fear, rage, and despair collided inside Ethan all at once. But here's the mystery box: if Michael was the correction, what did that mean for Daniel? Was he still alive? Was he taken to keep the Caldwell legacy clean? Or was something far darker at play? Viewers, this is where I need you. Do you believe Daniel is alive, or gone forever? Comment below, alive or dead. Let's see where our community stands. Most people don't know this, but in stories like these, the truth often hides in plain sight. And Ethan was beginning to suspect that the very empire he built was designed not just to create wealth, but to bury sins. And just when he thought he had reached the bottom, another note arrived in the mail that same evening. No return address. No signature. Just 5 chilling words. Your son was never missing. Subscribe before the next twist catches you off guard. Because trust me, the story isn't over.